Shazam is the new film to enter the DC Extended Universe, if that even still exists at this point. It's about this young boy, Billy Batson, who's been orphaned from his real parents, who winds up at multiple different foster homes. He eventually just leaves them altogether, but after getting settled with a new foster family, trying to get used to them before maybe he sneaks out and escapes once again, he encounters a wizard played by Digimon Hansu, who says that he is choosing him to be his new champion, Shazam, because he is out of options at this point pretty much. So whenever Billy says Shazam, he turns into Zachary Levi and has the powers of a bunch of Greek gods. The DC Extended Universe is a bit of a mess. I've talked about it a lot before in other DC reviews, but I was actually looking forward to this film because the idea of Shazam just interests me a little bit more, I think. I think the potential to make a great film out of that is totally there, and also I was totally behind the fact that David F. Sandberg was directing. I enjoyed Lights Out a lot. I think that's a really fun horror film, Annabelle Creation. I also really like that film, so as a director, he's shown a lot of promise recently, only elevating from like YouTube short films to full-length films like not too long ago. So I was very excited to see what he could do with this film, a total tonal shift from horror to a superhero film, and I think he pulled it off very well. This is by far my favorite DC Extended Universe film. I know that I talked really highly about Wonder Woman at a certain point, but I've talked about how that film has kind of gone down a bit in quality for me. Now that and Aquaman are kind of on the same, like, decent level for me, but this movie kind of gave me everything I wanted and a little bit more. One thing I was really worried about going into this film is if I was actually going to be able to like the kid actor that was playing Billy Batson, because Zachary Levi is playing the Shazam counterpart, and I was a little worried that maybe Zach Levi could overshadow him, and it would make me just want to see more of Zach Levi instead of him, but the kid actually did a fantastic job. So much so that I actually wasn't annoyed with Zachary Levi turning back into him at certain parts. Like, I actually really did enjoy this actor a lot, because he is who Billy Batson is. Early on in the film, they set up his character, and at that point, that is the definition of Billy Batson, and he did a fantastic job carrying a lot of the drama that this character provides and setting up how this character is going to be portrayed. Zachary Levi as the Shazam counterpart is fantastic. He's able to fully embody the childlike mannerisms of the regular Billy Batson that we see before so well. Like, he actually seems like he is the older version of this kid at some point, and that was just really fantastic to see. I think Zachary Levi pulled off this performance so well, and he should be celebrated for that. But the main kid playing Billy Batson, I still think carried a lot of the drama much more so, because this movie actually goes in quite a few surprising emotional directions to really anchor this film emotionally, and I was quite surprised by that, but they all pulled it off very well. There was no Billy Batson that I preferred seeing. It was both of them, Zachary Levi and this kid Asher Angel. These two really did carry Billy Batson's character so well. Both of them are the definitive Billy Batson. And speaking of that emotional anchor, I really enjoyed the scenes with him and his foster family. This foster family, I was a little worried going in, like maybe some of the kids won't work, or maybe they'll be a little underdeveloped, but they actually worked them into the story fairly well. The foster parents are so sweet and loving. They just ooze heart out of their performance, and that was something that was really good to see, that these parents actually do care for all of their foster children, including Billy Batson, who has just entered their lives. Even though they know he's escaped multiple other foster homes, they still care for him immensely because they kind of relate. They understand what it's like to be a foster kid. The guy I was really impressed with, Jack Dylan Grazer, he was in It as Eddie, and I was a little worried going in, like, okay, so far from the trailers, he's really good, but this is the kind of character that could get annoying if done incorrectly. The kid pulled it off as Freddy. This kid really nailed it in the humor department, and the chemistry between him and Asher Angel, and of course Zachary Levi, who he spends most of his time with, is fantastic. They all have a good rapport with each other, and the humor in this film, I've already talked about the emotional anchor of this film and how dramatic it actually kind of gets, which really surprised me and touched me, but the humor of this movie actually really surprised me, because I was going in already expecting a comedy, but this movie actually is much more funny than I was expecting. Like the convenience store robbery that you've probably seen in the Comic-Con trailer, there's actually another joke in there that I was surprised that they actually did, but it made me laugh so hard, and there's other jokes like that throughout the film that got me to really laugh. There's one joke involving the villain, Mark Strong, and it's centered around villain speeches, that's all I'll say. Kind of genius, and I think that's a good word for this film. It's kind of comedic genius, in all honesty. It's a good way to make a superhero film, but also kind of satirize it at the same time without making it like a complete satire like a Deadpool is. Just more more farcical in nature, but not a complete farce. Another thing I want to bring up, surprisingly enough, the villain I actually thought was really good here. I've heard some complaints that he's just your average villain. I didn't really think so. The movie opens up establishing, like as a child, why he's going to later become the Mark Strong that we see, and I thought that was really well handled, and seeing how his character is getting closer and closer to what he wants, I thought Mark Strong's performance really carried that, and like I said, they give him plenty of moments in the screenplay to really make his character more memorable, and I actually do think this is a really good villain. It's definitely the best DCEU villain that we've gotten so far, like, hands down. And even these creatures that follow him that represent like the 7 deadly sins, they look fantastic. Like, this is where David F. Sandberg's horror directing really does come into play, is that he really does put in a lot of scary things that would probably scare younger children. Obviously not any like teenagers or adults, but like younger children that are going to go see this movie might be traumatized by certain things. Maybe not completely, but there are definitely some things that might stand out as, oh, that's in a more family-friendly kind of superhero film. Oops. But even then, it's still really entertaining to see, and it just shows how David F. Sandberg really knows how to put his own vision in there. This could have just been a studio product, but you can tell when it comes to the emotional aspects, when it comes to the humor of this film, and when it does need to get a wee bit dark in certain areas, David F. Sandberg really handles all this well. Like, there are certain scenes that you would expect in a David F. Sandberg horror film that are put into this film, and I thought that was a really good idea. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is that I think David F. Sandberg is the savior of the DCEU. I know Patty Jenkins did a good job with Wonder Woman, and even James Wan made a really entertaining Aquaman movie, but David F. Sandberg brought something that I haven't really seen in a DCEU film before, and that's special to me. Whenever they make that Black Adam movie with Dwayne Johnson, and if this movie makes enough money to warrant more Shazam movies, please bring back David F. Sandberg. I want to see more horror films from him for sure, because that's where he started off, but I really want to see more Shazam movies with him at the helm. I think he really understands what makes this character work at the end of the day, and why the rest of the characters also work, and why the family and emotional aspects really do help make a better film. I do have a couple issues with this movie. There are a couple times where there are certain visual effects that don't really work for me. It's not as bad as other DC films where the CGI would look just completely terrible, but there are a few times where you do notice like that doesn't hold up as much as some of the other visual stuff that we're seeing. And also there are these school bullies that show up that just felt really cartoony, and I know the movie as a whole is more, like I said, farcical in nature, but the school bullies they have here just kind of stood out like a sore thumb as far as being like completely unrealistic. I do like how they kind of got revenge on these bullies, obviously, but it's just like the way they portrayed them, the way they wrote them just felt really too cartoony, over-the-top villain, as opposed to just what they are, which is dumb school bullies that could have been written a little bit better, a little bit more realistically. Other than that, I don't really have that many other issues with this movie. The action sequences I thought were a ton of fun. Seeing Zachary Levi fly about and punch things and kind of be surprised at what he can do at the same time is super fun to see. The humor is really fantastic here. I've laughed so hard at this movie, more than I have at recent comedies that I've seen, surprisingly enough. The filmmaking from David F. Sandberg is really good when it comes to directing these action sequences, when it comes to directing certain horror moments, but also when it comes to handling the overall tone of this film, the overall message, when it comes to talking about themes of love and family that really surprised me and I didn't expect to see that much of, but I was really touched by this movie at the end of the day. And the fact that a DC film could touch me in here, like, that's enough of a recommendation, I think. I'm gonna give Shazam an A-. This movie is tons of fun. Zachary Levi kills it as Shazam, but also the young boy playing Billy Batson really kills it. It's a movie where it could have easily just been the Zachary Levi show, everything about Zachary Levi is so good, but everything else is kind of mediocre, but I think David F. Sandberg really did find a way to helm this film and just have everything support each other, you know? It has a couple minor issues, but overall it's a really good film, and definitely gonna be one of the most enjoyable films I've seen this whole year. But if you've seen Shazam, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.